Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. Today, we're going to be tackling some pretty interesting financial news.
Yeah, some really fascinating stuff, both globally and here in Egypt.
Exactly. So if you're an investor or a trader, you're definitely going to want to stick around for this one. We're going to cover everything from, the Fed's latest moves to the Egyptian stock market.
Even some gold trends for you gold bugs out there.
But before we jump in, just a quick reminder that all the information we're sharing today is purely for informational purposes, okay?
Of course, always do your own research before making any investment decisions, right?
Absolutely. We're just here to break down some complex stuff and hopefully make it a little bit easier to digest.
Exactly. Try and see the big picture.
All right, so let's start with that big question that's been looming over the global markets. Will the Fed cut interest rates in 2025?
The million-dollar question, right?
Right. What do you think?
Well, everyone's kind of hoping for a cut, but if we look at the data, the answer is probably not, at least not right now.
Not right now, right. And that's mainly because the U.S. economy is still pretty strong, right? Consumers are still spending, wages are going up.
Yeah, exactly. And all of that is keeping inflation stubbornly above that 2% target that the Fed wants to see.
Okay, so the Fed's got to play it safe for now. But I got to ask, how does this global inflation roller coaster actually affect us here in Egypt?
Well, that's where things get really interesting because, Egypt's central bank is getting a lot of heat right now for their high interest rate policy.
Yeah, I've seen the headlines. It's a hot topic for sure. But why are people so fired up about it?
Good question. So basically, there are four big arguments against the central bank's approach. The first one is this. Critics say that the current policy is kind of like locking treasury yields and bank lending rates together in a way that hurts businesses.
Ah, I see. So it makes borrowing money super expensive, right?
Exactly. And that makes it really hard for businesses to, get loans, to expand, to invest in growth.
It's like a domino effect. One thing leads to another. Okay, so what's the second big critique?
This one's a bit of a head scratcher. So you've got the central bank raising interest rates to fight inflation, right? But at the same time, the cost of basic stuff like fuel and utilities is also going up.
Oh, yeah. Definitely felt that one.
And so critics are saying, hold on a minute, how can you raise rates and increase the cost of living at the same time and expect inflation to go down?
Right. Doesn't that just add fuel to the fire?
Exactly. It's like a double whammy on people's wallets.
Tough spot for policymakers, that's for sure. Okay, so what about the other two criticisms? What else are people saying?
Well, business leaders aren't mincing words. Let me tell you. There was this really heated meeting recently where they basically told the central bank, look, these high interest rates are stifling investment.
They're not holding back.
Nope. They're saying it's hurting economic growth and it's making it harder for businesses to create jobs.
Strong words.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder if investors are getting spooked by all of this and just holding back.
Yeah. And that leads us to that fourth criticism, which is that these high rates are pushing investors to just play it safe, put their money in treasury bills because they're seen as low risk.
But then that means, like you said, businesses aren't getting the capital they need to innovate and grow.
Right. So it's like this whole debate about finding the right balance, controlling inflation, but also supporting economic growth.
Yeah, it's a tricky puzzle for sure. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit and talk about some positive news, some corporate updates. Orascom Construction just announced a pretty hefty dividend payout.
Yeah, 10%. That's even higher than what analysts were expecting. So that's definitely something investors are going to be happy about.
Good news there. And what about CDK Petrochemicals? Any updates from them?
Yeah, so they're projecting really strong profits for 2025, but there's a catch.
Oh, the catch. What is it?
Their forecast is based on a very specific USD to EGP exchange rate. So, if the exchange rate goes in a different direction, their profits could be affected.
So investors need to keep an eye on that exchange rate. Factor that into their calculations.
Absolutely. It's always important to look at the bigger picture.
Speaking of things to watch, I've been keeping an eye on the telecom sector. There's been a lot of talk about potential price hikes.
Oh, yeah. That would be big news for companies like Telecom Egypt. Could be a nice boost to their bottom line.
Potentially, yeah. Okay, and one last update. Juhayna just announced a pretty big shakeup. They're merging 4 of their subsidiaries back into the main company.
Interesting move. I wonder what kind of impact that'll have on their performance.
Right. Could be good, could be bad. Only time will tell. Okay, time for a quick stock market checkup. The EGX30 is back up above 30,000 points.
Nice recovery. But traders should definitely keep an eye on those key resistance and support levels because those are going to be the make or break points.
Yeah, those are the battlegrounds where you're going to see the most action.
For sure. And let's not forget about the EGX70. It's also approaching a key resistance level.
A lot of potential there. A lot of eyes on that. All right, let's wrap things up with a quick look at gold. Globally, gold prices have been rebounding lately. That's partly due to all the uncertainty surrounding the Fed, right?
Yeah, gold is always seen as a safe haven asset, so when there's uncertainty in the market, people tend to flock to gold.
Makes sense. And here in Egypt, how are gold prices looking?
Well, they've been pretty stable for now, but there's something big happening in January that could shake things up. A bunch of bank certificates are set to mature, and that means there's going to be a lot of capital suddenly looking for a new home.
Ah, and gold could be a tempting option.
Exactly. So if you're a gold investor, definitely keep your eyes peeled for any big moves in January.
Wow, we covered a lot today. Global trends, the central bank debate, corporate updates, the stock market, gold. It's a lot to digest.
Yeah, it's a lot to think about for sure.
But hopefully it's given our listeners, some food for thought. So with all of this information in mind, what's your overall outlook on the Egyptian market in 2025?
I think the biggest takeaway is that we're in a really dynamic period. There's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of moving parts, but there are also a lot of opportunities out there.
Yeah, for those who are willing to do their research to really understand the risks and the rewards.
Exactly. Knowledge is power, especially in the financial markets.
Couldn't agree more. So to our listeners out there, stay informed, stay engaged, and most importantly, stay curious.
And until next time, happy investing.
Happy investing, everyone.